Good morning, everyone. For today's Cert Prep activity, number 4, if you go into Classroom, you'll notice the instructions are typed out, the same ones that I am going to go over with you as we go through the activity together. I'm going to stick it on my side monitor here. That way it's not cluttering the screen for you guys. Anyways, the activities we're going to be working on are going to involve showing you guys how to do adjustments to color, how to use the color replacement and history brush tools to do some different effects with photo. I'm also going to show you guys some things with layers, how you can do grouping of multiple layers, and we'll look at layer styles, blending options, and you're going to try out some different effects using blending modes, also known as blending options. And then we'll do a thing with gradients, and we'll talk finally about non-destructive versus destructive edits. So let's go ahead and start off. The first thing that you need to do is actually find any picture. It could be a picture on your computer, but just a picture that we're going to do some color changes to. So I'm going to go into the Photos for PS folder, which is in the Google Classroom, and locate something. I'll just take the picture of the old man on there. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to go open, or I'm going to go download, and then once it downloads I will open it in Photoshop. So while we're waiting on that, let me tell you a little bit about non-destructive versus destructive edits. So when you guys are editing something in Photoshop, if you're doing something that actually changes the pixels forever, like using a paintbrush or anything like that, most of the time what you're doing is called a destructive edit, meaning it is actually changing the original photo, the raw photo that you started with. And when you're doing a non-destructive edit, you're using things such as masks, and clipping masks are an example of non-destructive edits, as well as when you turn a layer into a smart layer or smart object. And so anyways, let me get old man open here. I opened with the wrong thing. I need to go into Open With and locate Adobe Photoshop. And while we're waiting on that, I'll continue to tell you about non-destructive versus destructive edits. So when you're working with things like text, when you initially add text to a photo or any kind of image, you are adding what's called a vector layer, and as is, it is a it is kind of the same as a smart object. It's something that if you save your file as a Photoshop file, you can come back and edit the text later. Otherwise, if you do a destructive edit, in the case of text, it's when you rasterize text, you're basically turning it into pixels. It's no longer something that can be edited. And so when you save work that has your text rasterized, then you have essentially made it so you can't edit it. You've destroyed it. You haven't destroyed it, but it's a destructive edit because it destroys the original data. So that's the difference between destructive and non-destructive. We'll see it in a little bit more depth when we're working in from here on out, as we're working with the different effects and things like that with photos and different tools. I will point out whether it's a destructive or non-destructive edit. Alright, so Photoshop is now open, and we already opened a picture of our choice. The first thing we're going to do is work with some automatic adjustments. So old man here, let me zoom in a little bit, You might not notice too much of the effect with this, but we'll see what happens. I know my screen recording is not going to have the same quality that we'd see in person, plus it's already a pretty well lit photo. But if I go into image, this is where the things are that we're going to be working with. So the first thing is it says go to image, auto tone. So if I do that, whoops, pardon me. Well, there we go. Let me go back in time and do that again. Alright, image, image, auto tone. And like I suspected, you're not going to see much of a difference. What auto tone does is it takes the darkest and the lightest parts of the picture and kind of takes the whole range of color and tries to spread it out so that some of the lighter lights are darker and some of the darker darks are lighter, and vice versa. Sometimes it takes a lighter light and makes it even lighter if the lightest light is very bright. So anyways, that's auto tone, and it says next to go back into history. And so if you go to your history tab, if you don't have this, you can go to window, history, where is it? History, and that'll pop up. And if you go into there, it's your undos, obviously. You can kind of toggle between. If you have a bad picture to start with, then you should see a difference. So you can try that out, see what happens, but go back to the original auto tone. You can actually kind of see a difference here. It's a little bit warmer to start, a little bit more red, and so it dials it down a little bit. But anyways, I'm going back to when I opened it. You can also do that by going File, Revert. But anyways, now that I did that, I want to go to Auto Color. So if I go to Image, Auto Color, you can see now it's added a little bit more of a bluish tone to it to kind of dial it down. So you take a look at where we were and where we are, you can see what the difference is. Before it looked more like a photo taken in, like, I don't know, the early 80s or 70s or something, which it obviously wasn't. But it looks like that's got that warmth to it. But when you add the auto color, it gives a little bit more cool tones to cool it down a little bit, neutralize it. So that is auto color. And the next thing we're going to do is go back to open and go to image. And for this one, we are going to go to adjustments. And these are all destructive edits. Anything on the menu up here under image, adjustments, is destructive in that it's going to change the layer that you're working on. It's going to actually change the pixels. And you won't be able to edit that anymore. So if I go to adjustments, brightness and contrast, then I can make the image brighter. I can boost the contrast. Boosting contrast basically just makes the colors more defined, more contrasty against one another. I don't know if contrasty is a word, but anyways. So I just did that. You can also check the preview and see what the difference is between your previous and current view. And when I click OK, that was a destructive edit. So there's that. The next thing that we want to do after you've adjusted the brightness and contrast is we're going to save our picture as after. So I'm going to go File, Save As. I'm going to call it After. And you can change it to a Photoshop PSD and stick that in your Documents folder. And in my case, I have a place where I'm ditching this stuff, so I'm going to put mine in my PS Cert activity folder, if I can find it. I'm not seeing it. Oh well. Anyways, I'll stick it in my geometrics projects for now. And so when you hit save, that's done. The next thing that we're going to do is just check out the black and white on here under the adjustments. There are a few different ways to make things black and white. One is you can go to image, adjust, and you can go down to desaturate. And all that does is it removes the color. Desaturating just removes hue. The difference between that and black and white is that black and white you can adjust the levels of the lightness and darkness of colors before you turn it black, or before you commit your changes. So I'll show you that really quick. You can make for much higher contrast photos, black and white photos, if you do it that way. So if you go to Image, Adjustments, Black and White, you'll see a little slider here, and there's presets on here. So you can see if you do blue filter, what it's doing is it's taking the blues, the cooler colors, and boosting up how dark they are compared to, or how light the other ones and dark those become on there. You can see the difference. If I change it to darker, I can see, here's the original, here's darker. There's some subtle changes in different areas. Usually blues, darker colors, or sorry, lower intensity colors are usually made out to be darker when you're looking at them in black and white. So you can try out some of these filters. You can also hand adjust these. So if I want to create a very dramatic image, then I can go in and I can make certain colors appear darker than others. And you can also adjust the tint down here, so you can make something sepia tone like this, like an old-timey out west kind of photo. And you can also change the hue, so if I wanted to make it monochromatic in red, I could do that. The colors don't always match up perfectly here, like you might be something in more of a yellow and it looks orange, but anyways, that's how that works. That is by clicking tint. So anyways, try that out, and if you like what you have, you can save it, but you don't have to. If you're working with your own photo, you could create some really cool effects with black and white that maybe you could use for something else. So anyways, I'm clicking OK. That again was a destructive edit. Anything under Image Adjustments from a menu is destructive. There is another adjustments that is non-destructive, and we'll hit on that at some other point, but those are right up here under this tab, which you can get to by going Window, Adjustments. By the way, any of these panels, if you don't see them, go to Window, and then you'll see them all along this thing here. So you can always open them from there. Alright, I'll be right back in just a second. Okay, so picking up where we left off, the next thing that we're going to do is work with color replacement and history brush. So I'm going to open up the flower image in Classroom, which it's actually one of the main things in here since it's one of the main ones we're working with. So if you right click, go open link in new tab, and then hit the download button. We got this really poor quality picture of a flower, but we are going to work with it anyways. I'm going to go ahead and open that. Bibbidi bobbidi boo, here it is. I'll zoom in a little bit. You can see how horrible it looks. But anyways, next thing we're going to do is we're going to look at that Image Adjustments, Desaturate. We're taking out all the color. And what that essentially allowed me to do is turn it black and white, but I will be able to use a tool called the History Brush, which is located under the brushes here. If you, sorry, not that one. Thought that was it. We are going to here. It's actually the top level History Brush is that one. It looks like a brush with a little undo logo, because that's what it essentially does. You can use the little brackets, the left and right brackets, to change your brush size, and you basically color over the parts that you want to undo the effect for. So you're basically just undoing in certain areas. And you can see now I'm bringing back some color here into these petals. So you can do a color splash effect using this, which might be kind of fun if you wanted to have that kind of Schindler's List, if you've ever seen that movie, that effect, where everything's black and white except for one object. And it's one way that you can create emphasis and make something stand out from the rest. And as you see over here, I've kind of goofed up a little bit on that last part. I can always go back in and redo it if I wanted to. I'm not going to bother to right now, but anyways, that's how that works. So once you've done that, go to File. Just do it on one flower. Go to File, Save As, call it Color Splash. Color Splash. Put it in your documents. I'm putting mine in my Geometrics projects. Click Save. And you're going to end up uploading that in a little bit. But you can do this with some other pictures and try it out. Again, as I've said before, when you do any kind of practicing with the same thing, you don't have to turn the practice things in. It's more for you to learn the tool. So if you feel that you understand how this works, then so be it. If I now go, I'm going to move back onto the Color Splash here. I'm not saving as Color Splash 2 or Color Splash 3, but I am going to mess with the color replace with the same image. So using the same flower picture, it says double click on the background layer. So if I double click on that, it pops this up. It's not what I wanted. There we go. But when I click OK, the lock disappears here. You can also just get rid of the lock by clicking on the lock. These were somebody's old instructions, maybe for a previous Photoshop. Anyways, so I've double clicked that. If I right click on layer 0 now, turn background into layer 0, I can duplicate it. So if I go up to duplicate, it makes a copy of it. And I can hit the eyeball and that makes that one invisible, but if I turn it back on, it's visible. It doesn't matter because the background is the original here. So then I want to use a color replacement tool. So for the foreground color, I want to change it to a color that I want the flower petal to be. So I'm going to make it kind of a blue color. And if I go to the color replacement tool, which is under brushes, if I go down to color replacement tool, by the way, you can toggle between, or you can access whatever tool you have selected on there by pressing B. So if you already had it selected, you can just press B and it'll come up. Anyways, now if I go through, start coloring over it, what this does is it replaces any color information, not darkness or lightness, but color information, the hue, with whatever color you picked. So you can do a monochromatic thing here. You can turn a person into a Smurf if you have a picture of a person that you wanted to work with this. And you're replacing the color with whatever color you have selected. So that's just another way effect you can do. And when you are done coloring this, I'm not going to do any more. I just wanted to show you how it works. You can go ahead and save this as color replace. Now if I click on the eyeball here, I can see the before and after. So there's that, and I'm going to go ahead and save this as color replace. Save as color replace. You'll end up turning that one in. And when I hit save, click OK. There we go. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and end this video so that you don't have a bunch of 20-minute videos to try to sift through, but this one's a long enough one. This one's a long enough one, so I'm going to stop it.